So my name is Kirsten Murfitt from KM Law. I am a commercial and property lawyer with over 20 years experience.
You can, if you push that, it makes the page go forward.
I don't have these slides.
Oh, no, okay.
Erika's got the slideshow.
Don't touch that.
So this evening I'm going to be talking about some pro bono work I've been doing for Lobby for Good, and we've been looking at a lot of the property transactions that were undertaken under the commissioners. So I'm no stranger to the council. Back in 2019 they tried to bring in a pool register fee, but they already had one, and they had one for 32 years. So I sort of did a petition, fought back to them, they listened to me, and they dropped that charge. So that was direct democracy in action, which was great. But then 2 years later, under the commissioners, the councillors consulted my husband and I, because they were doing work on Cameron Road where my office is. So the council wanted to move a perfectly good bus stop 200 metres down the road to in front of my office, which is 30 metres from the corner, which is on the intersection of 15th and Cameron, which is a really, really dangerous intersection. So we asked for a health and safety report, and we're still waiting. So the council just wouldn't listen to us at all, and because we fought them, I now have half a bus stop across my commercial driveway, which also serves 2 residential driveways as well. But at the same time, 2 developers didn't like 2 new bus stops, so this was an existing, 2 new bus stops on Durham Street, and they managed to get the council to move them. So did the developers have a better argument than me, or did they just have more influence? But we'll come back to that later. So let's talk about the Local Governments Act 2002. So the Act promotes transparent, accountable and democratic local government. However, in practice, we often witness something quite different. So in 2021, the Auditor General said, and this is a quote, "Public accountability is about public organisations demonstrating to Parliament and the public their competence, reliability and honesty in use of public money and other public resources." Sounds pretty good, right? But it's disheartening when we see a lack of genuine accountability, where those who are meant to serve us are either serving their own interests or the interests of a few. So the power of a select few is very interesting in Tauranga indeed. So Garth, who's the local lawyer who's sitting over there, as most of you will know him, he fought for 11 months to try and find out who had been pushing and advocating to extend the commissioners' terms. Now what I found really interesting about this was the Department of Internal Affairs at first said, no, we don't have the information. So Garth, being a tricky little lawyer, got the Ombudsman involved. And so the Ombudsman investigated, and guess what? The Department of Internal Affairs did actually have the information. Go figure. So the information showed that the Urban Task Force and others had advocated for the Commissioner's term to be extended. So why did a lobby group of property developers and business people want to interfere in democracy in little old Tauranga? So the erosion of trust in local government grew under the tenure of the commissioners, and it remains to be seen whether the newly elected council will be able to reverse this decline. I can see Glenn smiling. When council fails to engage meaningfully with the communities, the very foundation of democracy is weakened. This is particularly apparent in decisions made without adequate consultation or consideration of public sentiment. Consultation shouldn't just be a box-ticking exercise with a predetermined outcome. And this seems to be the case with what has actually happened in the Marine Precinct, where legitimate concerns were ignored. And Erika will talk about that in her 10-year journey with the council. So Erika and I started asking questions about property transactions under the commissioners. Whistleblowers came forward, other people came forward. But shortly after we started asking questions, we encountered legal threats to try and silence us. These threats raised very serious concerns about transparency, the free flow of public relevant information, and the ability of advocacy groups to raise legitimate questions without intimidation. So while we are very careful with what we say, we are still going to ask questions and we're still going to investigate. It is our democratic right to do so when public funds and assets are involved. So the information that we put out there is based on information in the GOMAs and also publicly available records. However, we do acknowledge there may be information that's missing, but that's not our doing, it's because the council won't release it. So what have we found? Well, what we've found appears to be public land being sold below market value on very favourable terms to the buyers over the broader interests of the ratepayer. Then we found private land being bought at or above market value on very favourable terms to the sellers, costing ratepayers and raising further concerns about decision-making processes. Most of these transactions were done behind closed doors and also off-market. So I'm going to speak very briefly about these deals of concern. So very briefly, the Marine Precinct was sold for $13.9 million, significantly undervalued. And then the council committed another $29 million to build a wharf for the same developers. So if the council had offered me the same deal, I would have gone out to everyone I knew and tried to raise $13.9 million so that I could have a piece of land, waterfront, on central Tauranga. But that's right, I wasn't offered that deal. No one was, as the deal was done behind closed doors. So do you think the $100 million local fishing industry would have rallied around and raised that money to avoid them being displaced? Well, they didn't even know the property was being sold, as it was not placed on the open market. So don't you think the commissioners had a duty to realise the best price if they were going to sell it at all, and at least go to tender? So Erika will discuss that in more detail. So Patel Road. We understand that this land was originally gifted to the Mount Maunganui Borough Council before it vested into Tauranga Council, making transparency in the sale particularly important for public accountability. The council previously owned 9 outer housing villages. In 2018, the decision was made to divest the outer housing portfolio. And this is beautiful. The council records state, divestment will be via an open, competitive process, and maintaining the well-being of tenants will be a priority at all times. So fast forward. In May 2021, it was decided to separate Patel Road Village and Hernal Street Village from the outer housing portfolio. In July 2022, the commissioners discussed the potential sale of Patel Road, of course, in a public excluded session. On 1 August 2022, the Labour government announced the new compulsory medium density residential standards, MRRS, which came into effect. As a Tier 1 council, Tauranga Council was required to incorporate the MRRSs into the city's planning framework. The following day, on the 2nd of August 2022, the council entered into an agreement for sale and purchase with Sanderson for the sale of 5 properties. It really makes you wonder what happened in that publicly excluded session back in July. So on the review of Patel Road, these are my a nutshell of my concerns. There's much more. If you want to read my open letters, you're more than welcome to go and grab them. So first of all, the process lacked full transparency and competitive bidding. Patel Road was not listed on the open market, raising concerns about whether the sale achieved fair market value for us ratepayers. Within a year of the sale, Patel Road's capital value increased by $7 million. We want transparency on the factors that contributed to this significant rise and whether those factors were fully considered when they discussed the original sale. Additionally, residents were initially consulted on zoning height of up to 11 metres. However, the purchaser later applied for a resource consent under the COVID-19 fast-tracking consent process to build up to 22 metres, and then eventually given a grant of consent for 5 and 6 storey buildings, significantly increasing the value of the land. The application under the CV19 fast track scheme also minimised public consultation and participation in that decision. So the full implications of the zoning allowance were not transparently communicated to the public before the sale. In addition, the application made under the Fast Track Act was, guess what, on the last day before the Act was to be repealed. So that raises questions on whether it was a genuine use of the statutory framework. The Council has not publicly disclosed the purchase price for the sale of Tau Road to the private property company, despite releasing sale prices and rationale for the other 7 elder housing villages sold to MRRR. This raises serious concerns about the inconsistent transparency in property sales. So the council had also previously agreed to sell 2 sections of Tau Road to a different property developer. It later repurchased these sections before on-selling the whole lot across to the Sanderson Group. So we want to have a breakdown of how much the council actually paid to Venture Developments to break that contract. Because if I was Venture Developments, I would have seen an opportunity to get the best deal possible for myself. And I have no problems with venture development. I do exactly the same thing myself. But why is council buying back and breaking contracts to benefit Sandersons? So the council also granted the purchaser extensions for the due diligence period. It actually went on for a whole year. Given that Tau Road was sold off-market, meaning that it was never put out there on a real estate or by people who come and see it, we want to know the reason for these extensions and also whether any reassessment of the sales terms were conducted. The council has stated the development will free up 100 or more homes in Tauranga to alleviate the housing shortage. However, the starting price for the apartments in the retirement village are $1.65 million, with most units selling between $2 million and $3 million, and the penthouses are near $5 million. So while this may provide housing options for some residents, the financial accessibility of these properties raises questions about the extent to which the development addresses housing affordability to the wider Tauranga community. 90 Devonport Road. We asked the council last year for clarification for the rationale of the council selling the property at 19 Devonport Road, that's the new council building, for $8.5 million, reduced from $10.75 million to the current owner and developer of the land. Under the terms of this arrangement, the council will now lease back the property it's sold at an annual cost of $5.4 million plus GST, with additional car park rental of approximately $200,000 plus GST. And that doesn't include Mahi's coffee bill. So I had to put that in there. The operating expenses are projected to be approximately about $3.25 million. And notably, all this was done in publicly excluded sessions in March 2021. So we calculated, based on the lease terms, the total rental over 15 years could approximate about $84 million plus GST, funded by the ratepayer. So we wanted clarification on the factors that led to these terms, including how they align with the council's fiduciary responsibilities and represent value for money for the ratepayer.
What did they sell it for? 8 million?
Yep, 8.4. Sorry, 8.5. Guess what? We didn't receive an answer. So purchases, we've also looked at a couple. What's the call me? Yeah. So.
That's good.
Okay. We've also looked at some of the purchases made by the commissioners. So this one got me into a little bit of trouble. 160 to 176 Devonport Road car park. So this was an interesting purchase, as the information obtained under the Lagoma showed that there was a contamination report raising issues, known asbestos, which eventually cost the ratepayer over $400,000 to remove, and the valuation stated that the commercial property market at the time had peaked, it was trending downwards while inflation was increasing and the OCR was at their highest level since 2008. So that's in the valuation that council got. The council's own records show that the vendor made, quote, unsolicited approach to the TCC, end quote, and the deal could have been, quote, lost via a sale to the open market, end quote. Why was this purchase so important for ratepayers? So the purchase was an unsolicited acquisition that was assessed in the report of 12 December 2022 as being of high significance as the purchase cost was under budget. However, I do quote so I don't get in trouble, the nature of the decision renders consultation impractical and or inappropriate based on the timeframes which the vendor requires an offer to be made. As some of you will recall, Holland Beckett was going to move into this property once it had been developed. However, on the 1st of December, so 11 days prior to that meeting, they announced they were moving to the Northern Quarter. So the council purchased the property as a strategic acquisition for future development of either an on-sale or maybe they'll keep it as that. They don't really know what they were going to do with it, but it was definitely strategic. Even though the purchase fell outside the scope of the Strategic Asset Fund. However, it had been recommended that staff review the Strategic Asset Fund to potentially make it a viable source of these funding types of deals. The council ended up paying $10 million to purchase the property. The purchase price was debt funded. So we're paying interest on top of that debt as well for this car park. In July 2023, the council decided to terminate the remaining leases, demolish the building and develop the site as an outdoor ground level car park with 104 car parks to decrease holding costs. As you recall, the council closed a car park approximately 850 metres down the road to create a green space. The forecast final cost of the demolition of the building at Davenport Road was 1.83 million, so that's on top of the 10 million that we've already spent, and of course that was debt funded too at 4.8%. The demolition cost was actually higher than anticipated due to the discovery of additional asbestos in the existing buildings. The development of the property for a temporary car park, because they don't actually know how they're going to use this strategic property, was of low significance, so no consultation was required. So there are various documents that are still being withheld by the council, and don't even ask Erika, Sam Uppendale or myself about the drama that we went through to view a conflict of interest document. And in my opinion, I believe all conflict of interest registers and should be available to the public, full stop. We shouldn't have to go through all these meetings and the gomas to view. The first viewing was a completely blacked out document. What a waste of Sam Uppendale's time, what a waste of our time. And then eventually we got one back, and all it says is Davenport Road, but you can see he's got other conflicts of interest there as well because they're blacked out. So I'd love to know which ones they are. Okay, so Durham Street. We also looked at the Commission's purchase of a property at Durham Street. The Council's documents and public records show that they purchased 134 Durham Street and 79 Grey Street for a combined price of 6.9 million to use as a laneway. A laneway. So the Council paid 3.8 for Durham Street and 1.95 more than the vendor had paid for it approximately 3 years previously. So the vendor did very, very well out of that.
Who was it?
My neighbour. I'll tell you about that later. The Commission has agreed to grant the owners of the neighbouring property 142 Durham Street, a related party to the sale, the benefit of an encumbrance for $1 per annum. The encumbrance provides that the Council had to purchase Durham Street for the development and use of the laneway. The Council must provide the owner of 142 Durham Street with a building setback of 11 metres, so nothing can be built for 11 metres away from that building, to allow the owner to renovate its building, including the construction of a glass facade, which would not be fire rated, nor would the building be fitted with a sprinkler system. The Council has indicated that it may grant a waiver of C3's rate of fire of the building code in respect of these renovations. Then the agreement for sale and purchase for the Council to purchase 134 Durham Street. states that the owners of 142, who have got the setback and all the benefits, have the first right of refusal to buy back the property the council's just bought. The council also had to collaborate on the development of the laneway, particularly to optimise and activate the frontages to the common boundaries. They also got a relocation of the bus stop to outside 134 Darren Street. They got to move 2 bus stops, and I got half a bus stop across my driveway. Maybe they should go to law school and I should become a developer. But this is only a snapshot of some of the deals. I'm sure many more of you can actually name so many more deals, and we're also looking at some of them. But we are doing this for free in an hour time as well. So in conclusion, for democracy to work, the community requires access to quality information about performance, plans and proposals of the council. Deals should not be conducted behind closed doors in secrecy, and ratepayers' assets should be placed on the open market for tender to get the best price available. The Mayor has promised ratepayers transparency on the go forward, but he does not want to review the transactions that occurred. He says we've inherited them. This does not sit comfortably with me. While elected members and commissioners may come and go, the staff remain. I'm not saying the staff have done anything wrong, and I've got that on record, but we do have a right to understand what has gone on under the hood at council. This lack of transparency and accountability around property transactions raises concerns, especially as ratepayers face steep increases in their rate costs, and that directly impacts on housing affordability in Tauranga. As noted, we're facing rates increase between 10 to 12.5% this year. And just remember, everyone that's on super, you're only getting a 3% increase for your super. A local lawyer told me about a client that's in her 80s, that's living at the Mount. She's lived there her whole life. She's actually having to sell her property because she can no longer afford the rates. I mean, I ask you, do you really want to live in a city like this? We need better access to information regarding council's transactions to ensure public accountability and to protect ratepayers' interests. The council should not be prioritising the interests of a few. While democracy has been reinstated in Tauranga with the return of the local elections, I don't think council is actually engaging meaningfully with the community, and by that, the very foundation of democracy is weakened. So on that, I'm now going to pass you on to the amazing Erika.